Also joining us now is senior advocate at the Supreme Court, Nalin Kohli, is also with the BJP. Thank you, Mr. Kohli, for speaking to NDTV. Let me start by asking you, what are your objections against Congress leader, Sam Pitroda in this case, talking about debating the introduction of inheritance tax, because several countries already have a form of that, and of course, with many riders.
Inheritance tax is not the issue. The issue starts because the Congress party, or perhaps Mr. Rahul Gandhi, comes up with this fancy idea of redistribution of wealth with no details. And also the Congress party goes on to kind of indicate something that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji had raised about the focus on Muslims, or saying they have a first right over resources. This leads to a national debate. The Honorable Prime Minister raises it. And the question that has to be asked of the Congress party is, what is the basis of this so-called redistribution of wealth? People work all their lives. People slog and pay taxes. People have paid taxes up to 90% in the past under Congress regimes. They save it for their old age. They save it to leave it behind for their children. And then the Congress party says you will snatch it and distribute it to all. On what basis do you wish to do? On what law do you wish to do? On what principle do you say that you will go into people's houses, check their bank accounts and do a survey of the assets they have? For what? For redistributing to people. If this is not dividing society on socio-economic basis, on principles discarded by the communist countries, on Marxist countries decades ago, then what is? And if we are talking about the rights of Muslims having a first right, if that is not dividing society on the basis of religion, then what is? Because Prime Minister Modi's government does not in any scheme or program distinguish between any intended beneficiary on the basis of religion or region or caste or anything. It says if a person deserves to get that benefit, it will be given it. So when Mr. Rahul Gandhi comes up with this, the Congress comes up with it, they have no answer on this. Mr. Sam Pitroda, a close advisor of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who organizes all his international trips, brings these fancy ideas from abroad. He talks about the 55% tax rate in the US. So are you going to run India? Forget how Indians wish to the government to run for them. Bring in ideas from abroad and implement it here. Then you talk of inheritance tax. It clearly shows that the Congress party somewhere or the other, in talking about their concept of justice, wants to do injustice with people who have worked all their lives and leave something behind for their children. These are serious questions, and the Congress party is not answering them.
But sir, there's also a 9-judge constitution bench that's debating whether private property can be taken for greater public good. As a lawyer, what's your take on that?
Article 39B of the Constitution of India talks about this in looking at welfare of the society at large. If the Congress party is so gung-ho about the directive principles of state policy, then perhaps they can begin by supporting the government on the directive principles of state policy that a uniform civil code is needed. It's part of the directive principles of state policy. Where is then the controversy? The second part is the Ranganath judgment, if I remember, of 1977, in which the majority view said, no, you cannot take private property in distributing it. This is about the society, about the public resources. You can't snatch your mine or anybody else on this show, their property, to give it to somebody else. How can justice be done to a class of people by being unjust to another? And those people who have worked all their lives, slogged from morning to night, paid taxes, saved money, created assets and savings for their old age. You can't do it. There was a dissenting view of Justice Krishna here. That dissenting view in another 5-judge bench has been incorrectly construed. So therefore, this had to be clarified by a 9-judge bench. This came up earlier also, and therefore it was said a 9-judge bench should raise it. So the Honorable Chief Justice's Court is now raising it. It's basically about that. But the Congress party cannot turn around and try to draw any kind of inference from these legal issues, because essentially this is once again a half-baked idea of perhaps Mr. Rahul Gandhi without looking at the consequences of it. When there is a national furor, his advisor steps in to try and saves him and in effect creates a second furor.
But Congress leaders are of the view that all that the party's manifesto talks about is reducing income inequality and more affirmative action. This is something that your party also says it's doing, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Do you think that this issue is being politicized?
It is an election. And Vasudha, during an election, everything is politicized. That is the nature of an election. Second is, a manifesto should be crystal clear in what it says. The BJP's vision document in 2014, in 2019 is crystal clear. It's an agenda for governance. The Congress party has come out with some vague terms and given their past comments, including Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, talking about Muslims having a first right. It is legitimate that the questions will be asked of them because poor people must get the help of the government, which is what Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas is what Prime Minister Modi's government is doing without distinguishing between a single intended beneficiary on the basis of religion. Now, if the Congress party's language is so ambiguous that it is open to confusion, it is open to fear, if it is open to a concern, then obviously those questions will be asked. And what does the Congress party want? That Article 19 should not apply in asking questions to them. That the freedom of expression and speech will stop because the Congress party's first family has come out with a statement that is open to such confusion.
So that was Nalin Kohli on the latest controversy on the Congress party's wealth survey idea and of course Congress leader Sam Pitroda's comments and later his clarifications on that. So the Lok Sabha campaign has gained steam after the Prime Minister alleged in election rallies that the Congress plans to conduct a massive survey and put into motion a wealth redistribution plan. The Congress party, of course, has been pushed into a firefighting mode, a situation that it is quite used to, particularly before elections, as even in the past there have been episodes of its leader statements snowballing into controversies. That's all we have for you in this show. More news and updates on the other side.